of the servants of remembrance for the Queen Mother. As we move toward the next half hour, her coffin will be removed from Westminster Abbey. It will board a hearse, and then it will take a spectacular ride through the streets of London by Hyde Park, by Buckingham Palace, by a statue in honor of her late husband, King George VI. And then at about 1:45, there will be a flyover of Buckingham Palace of some vintage aircraft from the Second World War. Another tribute to the Queen Mother, who of course played a pivotal role in the Second World War in strengthening the spirits of Londoners at the worst days of the Blitz here. Let's go back inside the Abbey as you see the preparations being made, the pallbearers standing by. Let's bring in Rafe Heydel-Mankoo with the Monarchist League of Canada, who has been watching this service. And Rafe, it struck me that it was a fairly uplifting service.
Yes, we've experienced something so moving that it seems almost as if words do not suffice. We see here the most noble order of the Garter being carried, Honi soit qui mal y pense, the motto of the Garter. What feelings and emotions are uppermost in our hearts right now? Pride, I suppose, to have had a Queen Mother and Queen Consort who served us so magnificently. Gratitude for a long life of personal sacrifice and devotion to duty. And of course, sadness that we shall never see her or indeed her like again. Now we see the clergy processing down the great sweep of the nave. The moderator of the Church of Scotland, His Eminence, Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor, and there the great Cross of Canterbury, and Dr. George Carey, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the 103rd Archbishop, and the first not to have attended Oxford and Cambridge, just showing the changes that have taken place over the course of the century through which the Queen Mother lived. And here now we see at the top of the screen Garter King of Arms and Lord Lyon King of Arms, the senior heralds of the land, the great officers of arms. We heard Garter reading out the stars and titles of the Queen in his resplendent tabard of red and gold, muted by a black sash. And now the bearer party lift the coffin of the Queen Mother, who for the last time will leave this abbey in which she was married, in which she saw her husband crowned and her daughter crowned, now to make her final journey through London, a city she knew so well and that loved her dearly. The procession along this nave is short. The nave is not the longest, but it is the highest, as we saw from those wonderful, wonderful views from the camera high up at the top of the nave. It is the highest in England, affording us a glimpse of the spectacle which those who were in attendance were able to witness fully.
Each of the pallbearers representing a regiment associated with the Queen Mother. We'll be hearing some of the music of Johann Sebastian Bach as the coffin leaves, and also the bells from Westminster. They are about to ring, half muffled.
All through the service,
members of the royal family.
All through the service, the great curfew bell at Windsor Castle was tolling, and it is to Windsor now that the Queen Mother will make her final journey.
Her coffin will also pass by the tomb of the unknown warriors, where I gather, Rafael, and perhaps you can help me with this, the wreath of roses that Queen Elizabeth laid on the end of the coffin there a few days ago.
That's
will
right.
also be left at the tomb.
That's right, and drawing the circle to a full close, because it was in 1923 that the Queen Mother, then Duchess of York, laid her bridal bouquet upon the tomb, starting a tradition which continues to this very day. And here we see Princess Anne and Commodore Timothy Lawrence, her husband, Mr. Peter Phillips, the son of the Princess Royal. And now making its way into the final stretch of the nave, and the great west doors have been opened, and a shaft of afternoon light enters the cathedral. And as this coffin and the Queen Mother pass out of the Abbey, I cannot help but reflect that as it goes out, something too has gone out of all our lives, surely.
Bruce Wallace of Southern News here in London is also with us, and Bruce, I think, like me, you were struck by the choices that the Queen Mother made in the service, and how they were, in general, uplifting, saying, "I've lived a good life, don't mourn me, live on and remember."
Well, I think there's a sense of spring to a certain degree here, a sense of rebirth. My mother was in London for King George VI funeral and remembers it on a raw February day that was bleak and sort of captured the mood at that time of a man struck down very early. Queen Mother was not, and all week I think we've had a sense of rebirth, perhaps for the monarchy itself a little bit. We've certainly had a good week, and that's in terms of popularity and affection and an outpouring of sympathy.
There we see Prince Charles, of course, and his two sons, and we can't help but remember 5 years ago, William and Harry burying their mother, Diana, the Princess of Wales. Very little from them this week. There were some newspaper reports of them sharing stories of their grandmother, fond stories, but young men who have come to know tragedy, you can't imagine what kind of emotions were flowing through them as they say goodbye to their grandmother.
But they are the future, Kevin. This is something the Queen Mother fought all her life to preserve and protect, and certainly through both Charles and Harry and William, I think she feels that huge moves.
You see here, Raphael, the coffin leaving the Great West Door, where we should be seeing outside in just a moment.
That's right. And the lament starts.
As you can see behind us, the Queen Mother's coffin now leaving Westminster Abbey. It's a remarkable feeling to stand here, Bruce, and just feel the thump of the drum and just the solemnity of the moment, but also the power of the moment.
People should turn up the volume. It's impossible to not be moved by this. We're throwing flowers.
Some of the well-wishers Bruce just mentioning are throwing flowers at the hearse as it moves through the streets of London at a very slow pace. The Queen Mother's coffin is heading now toward Windsor Castle, which will be her final resting place. And immediately following it, several cars containing members of the royal family. The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh there, preparing to depart Westminster Abbey. They will head to Buckingham Palace for the flyby of vintage World War II aircraft.
There can be no more fitting tribute for the Premier Lady of Scotland than the sounds of the massed pipes playing that tremendous lament. Every morning the Queen Mother would be awoken by a bagpiper playing outside of her window. How fitting for her eternal sleep to be sent off with such a tremendous lament. And now the muffled peals of Westminster Abbey.
And the cheers of the crowd here as well, Rafael, as the Queen Mother moves towards her car. I'm sorry, the Queen Elizabeth moves towards her car, my mistake.
Margaret's Church, the parish church of the House of Commons, Churchill, Pepys and Milton, all in their turn were married, and Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh make their way back to Buckingham Palace. The colour has been lowered. And now they pass the statue of Sir Winston Churchill, that giant of history, whose funeral in 1965 was the last time that people in Britain or the Commonwealth had experienced anything comparable to this. This event now takes its place in history alongside the funeral of Churchill and the coronation of Queen Elizabeth, an event for all of us to remember till our dying days.
Indeed, the lines, you can see people saluting, getting pictures as the hearse moves towards the streets of London. The numbers of people who lined up to see the Queen Mother when she was lying in state in Westminster Hall numbered around 250,000, we're told. Just shy of the 300,000 that came to pay respects to Winston Churchill, as you said, in 1965 when he was laying in state, the last state funeral that was held in Britain.
And now the hearse approaches the cenotaph, the National War Memorial, where every Remembrance Sunday the Queen Mother would faithfully place a wreath in memory of the fallen of the wars. But now it is our turn to pay tribute.
Bruce, you live here in London full time. Give us a sense of where this route will carry the Queen Mother and its significance.
Well, as if it's stepped out of a tourist brochure, we'll go past all the major landmarks in central London. Up Whitehall, which is the nerve centre of government. It will then cut along the Mall, which is extraordinary. We'll go past the statue of King George VI. We will overlook this procession as it moves towards Buckingham Palace, which is just an incredible backdrop to this. And then the procession will cut through Hyde Park. It's a fantastic piece of greenery in the heart of London.
Those of you who have not been to London, Hyde Park is similar to Central Park in New York. It is right in the center of the city, and for anybody who feels landlocked in an urban center, it's a great relief to be able to jog or walk through that park and
The lungs of the city.
the lungs of the city.
Hyde Park also is attached to Kensington Gardens and Kensington Palace, where many members of the royal family live.
Kevin, I spoke to a Chelsea pensioner this morning, who are some of the veterans who live in a barracks, single men, elderly now, and they wear the fluorescent red uniforms. They participated in last Friday's procession. They brought the Queen Mother here. I spoke to one of them this morning who said he was an army man. He wasn't much on ceremony, but he said, standing there on Friday, he said, "We do this well."
Nobody does it better than the British. And I guess that brings up another point too, Bruce, and that's that, there's a fair number of people in London, in a sort of a twist of irony, that in some ways Canadians can be more passionate about the royal family than many people in Britain itself. You see the Queen there. I mean, what has happened, do you think, in London to the Republican movement this week?
Well, the Republican movement is always a sort of fairly quiet group. They must meet clandestinely to a certain degree, but they're certainly in retreat this week to a degree. I remember attending a meeting of one of their clubs called the Common Sense Club in a restaurant about 5 years ago, where someone had cleverly sneaked out a copy of the BBC's planned coverage of the funeral for the Queen Mother, and they were cackling to themselves because they thought 10 days of mourning, well, surely there will be a backlash at that. That will be our chance. Well, it hasn't worked out that way at all.
No, in fact, we've seen Londoners and people from outside London rally around the royal family, and here you see the procession moving toward Buckingham Palace.
It's just passed through Horse Guards Arch and into Horse Guards Parade, where the Queen celebrates her birthday each June in Trooping the Colour, and we've just seen the lifeguards of the Horse Guards giving a final salute. And there we have an aerial shot of Horse Guards Parade.
Have you heard any estimates of, Bruce, of how many people are lining the streets of London today?
I haven't. Here, there's not a patch of free space as far as we can tell.
And now, here we see the fly past, 2 Spitfires and a Lancaster, the only surviving Lancaster in Britain. There's only one other one in the world, and that is here in Canada. And it is a fitting tribute to the Queen Mother who was there during the Battle of Britain for the finest hour. And this is a last salute from the few.
Of course, for those of our viewers who haven't read up on their history, she had the offer, the Queen Mother, of taking her family at one point to Canada to avoid the German bombers, and absolutely refused, insisting that she and her family remain. And as we stand here, I can hear the rumble of the Lancaster as it flies over. I had the opportunity to fly in the one based in Hamilton, Ontario, a couple of years ago, and it is a giant of an aircraft. I've got to sit in the gun barrel on the bottom. It is a terrifying position, and you can't help but understand the fear that the young men must have gone through as they took that plane off the war. 2 Spitfires flanking it there. Now this procession, Rafael, is going to go to Windsor Castle, which is where the royal family tends to spend much of its time in London.
That's right, it's going to proceed up the Mall as it is now, and then through South Carriage of Hyde Park, and through Kensington and parts of London, and through suburbia, avoiding the highways, or the motorways as they're called in the UK, and going along a secondary route in order to afford Britons and others who have arrived in the UK a last chance to say farewell. This processional route of the Mall is approximately the same age as our Queen Mother, having been laid out by King Edward VII. And now we view it as symbolic of all that the Queen Mother stood for as she makes her final journey. How many thousands of times has she travelled down this path in a carriage or in a car? Now for one last time. And at the end, we see the Victoria Memorial at the end there. And then the Victoria Memorial was constructed for the last great Queen Empress, in whose last year the Queen Mother was born. The Archbishop of Canterbury, during his sermon, said that strength, dignity and laughter were those 3 special elements and qualities that earthed the Queen Mother to her Christian faith. Well, if we look at the Victoria Memorial, we find that it is surmounted by winged victory, a statue of victory attended by ones of courage and constancy. And those seem to me to be three other attributes which we can apply to our Queen Mother. Courage for the struggle through the abdication crisis and the early years of her husband's kingship, victory against tyranny and Nazi aggression, and constancy through the decades for well nigh 80 years of public service.
Rafael, I want to thank you for spending this moment with us and this morning with us. Your contributions have been invaluable and give us a real sense of the history and the pride that is attached to the royal family. The Queen Mother's trip to Windsor Castle will last at least an hour. It depends how many people are along the road, the speed with which it will travel, but it will end, as I said, at Windsor Castle in the St. George's Chapel, where there will be a private ceremony of internment, and then the Queen Mother will be laid to rest. And interestingly, alongside her, the ashes of Princess Margaret, who of course died 2 months ago. They have been held in the royal vault and will be moved in the same gravesite as the Queen Mother, who indeed will be buried alongside her husband, King George VI. It has been quite a morning here, Bruce. I've never experienced anything like it, and it has. I want to thank you for your contributions as well, and giving us a sense of what this has meant to the people of Britain and London as well. The planes fly over one last time as we say farewell, a fond farewell, to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. I'm Kevin Newman. We'll have a full wrap-up of the day's events tonight on Global National and your local global news as well. For now, good morning from London.